Sometimes, history is made with grand speeches, words that echo through time, stirring crowds and shaping nations. But every so often, history takes an unexpected turn. Other times, it's made with a sandwich, not just any sandwich, but a sub that would soon become infamous. In the ever-evolving theater of American protest, a new and unlikely symbol has emerged: the humble sub. Once just a lunch option, now a statement. Picture this: Washington, D.C., 2025. The city's iconic monuments stand tall, as always, but the air is thick with anticipation and unrest. This is a city accustomed to tension, to protests and passionate debates, but no one was prepared for what happened next, a moment that would capture the nation's attention. A federal officer standing guard at a demonstration suddenly found himself the target, not of a rock or a bottle, but of a flying subway footlong. The sandwich soared through the air, landing with a splat and a shock. This bizarre act of frustration quickly became a national headline, sparking a legal battle that would raise questions about the very nature of protest. Was it a harmless act of protest, or a crime deserving punishment? The courtroom became a stage for arguments about intent, symbolism, and the limits of free expression. The debate swept across the country, from newsrooms to coffee shops, igniting passionate discussions about what it means to dissent in modern America. The sandwich toss was more than a joke. It became a flashpoint for political anger, a symbol of frustration, and a sign of the times we live in. As we unpack this story, we'll meet the man behind the sandwich, the officer who was hit, and the legal and cultural arguments that followed in the wake of this unusual event. This isn't just a funny anecdote to share at lunch, it's a reflection of our deeply polarized era, where even something as simple as a sandwich can become a powerful symbol of division and defiance. So, grab a snack, maybe not a sandwich this time, and join us as we dive into the curious case of the protest sub, a story that proves history can be made in the most unexpected ways. To truly understand the story behind the sandwich protest, you first have to understand the man at its center. That man is Sean Dunn, a name that might not ring out in headlines, but one that carries weight in the corridors of power. Dunn wasn't your average activist. He was a former Justice Department International Affairs specialist, someone who had spent years navigating the complex machinery of government. He understood the system from the inside out, which made his decision to protest all the more remarkable. For Dunn, this wasn't just about politics, it was deeply personal. He'd witnessed the inner workings of government up close, and he felt, with growing certainty, that a critical line had been crossed. The breaking point came with the deployment of federal agents in Washington, D.C. under President Trump, a move that shocked even seasoned insiders. On a sweltering August night, outside a bustling D.C. nightclub, Dunn watched as federal officers patrolled the streets, their presence heavy and unmistakable, like an occupying force in his own city. His anger and frustration boiled over, not in a carefully organized rally, but in a spontaneous moment on a city sidewalk, surrounded by the energy and tension of the night. Dunn wasn't just a random passerby with a sandwich in hand, he was a seasoned professional, carrying with him a deep and personal grievance against what he saw unfolding. His act of protest was rooted in a profound belief that something fundamental had gone wrong in the city he called home, a city he had once served from within. In that moment, Dunn made a choice: to step outside the very system he had helped uphold, and to make a statement in the most unexpected way, with a foot-long sub as his symbol. This wasn't a rash outburst or a fleeting tantrum. It was a deliberate protest from someone who understood the stakes, who knew exactly what was at risk. The sandwich became his message, a simple object transformed into a powerful symbol of dissent and defiance, and that message, born on a city sidewalk, would soon echo far beyond the streets of D.C., resonating with anyone who's ever felt compelled to stand up and speak out. Outside the nightclub, the air was thick with tension, the kind that makes every sound sharper and every movement feel significant. The city's nightlife pulsed just beyond the velvet ropes, but on the sidewalk, something far more serious was brewing. Federal agents stood in a rigid line, their faces set and unreadable. Sean Dunn, his face flushed with anger and conviction, marched up to them, his voice rising above the din. He hurled accusations: fascism, racism, his words echoing off the brick walls and into the night. Agent Gregory Larimore, standing at the center, remained silent. He didn't flinch or respond, choosing instead to respect Dunn's right to protest, even as the words grew sharper and the crowd pressed closer. For a moment it was just a war of words, passion and anger clashing in the humid night air. But then, as if needing to punctuate his point, Dunn decided words weren't enough. In a split second he hurled his Subway sandwich at Larimore, the wrapped bundle flying through the air like a bizarre protest symbol, and hitting the agent squarely in the chest. The sandwich burst open on impact, showering the agent with onions, shredded lettuce, and a generous squirt of mustard. The crowd gasped, some in shock, others in disbelief at the absurdity of the moment. Shock and confusion rippled through the crowd. In an instant the protest had crossed a line. What was once a heated exchange had suddenly turned physical, and the mood shifted. The line between free speech and assault had been crossed, not with fists or weapons, but with a piece of fast food. A sandwich now lying on the pavement, its contents scattered at the feet of law enforcement. The scene shifted instantly. What began as a protest was now a potential crime scene. The sandwich, once a quick meal, was now evidence, bagged and tagged by officers as the crowd looked on. The moment was brief, but its consequences would last far longer. Dunn was arrested, the incident captured on dozens of phones, and soon the video was everywhere, fueling debates and leading to a courtroom battle, all sparked by a flying sub. In that instant, the debate over protest and crime took on a new flavor. One that mixed outrage, humor, and questions about the limits of dissent. And as the story spread, the world was watching, wondering what it all meant, and what would happen next. In court, Sean Dunn's defense didn't deny the facts. He threw the sandwich. Instead, attorney Julia Gatto argued it was political protest, not a crime. The sandwich, she said, was a symbol, messy, absurd, but non-violent. Dunn was pushed to his limit, using the sandwich as an exclamation point to his outrage. Charging him with assault, the defense argued, was an overreaction meant to silence dissent. They claimed the act was protected speech, not a physical attack. A sandwich isn't a weapon, they insisted, it's soft, not meant to injure. Gatto told the jury Dunn was not guilty because his actions didn't rise to criminal assault. The defense placed the sandwich toss in the tradition of symbolic protest. Prosecuting Dunn, they warned, could chill free speech and discourage dissent. The sandwich, in their eyes, was a tool of protest, not a crime. Dunn, they argued, was a patriot, not a criminal. The prosecution saw things differently. Assistant U.S. Attorney John Perrin argued, protest is legal, but assault is not. No matter your cause, you can't throw things at people, especially federal officers. They stripped away the symbolism. This was a straightforward case of assault. Dunn's motivations didn't matter. The act did. The First Amendment protects speech, not physical aggression. The sandwich was a projectile, not a protest. Allowing this behavior, they argued, would endanger law enforcement and undermine order. Their message: Sean Dunn's actions were a crime, plain and simple. The prosecution's key witness was Agent Gregory Larimore. He described Dunn's approach: angry, shouting, but met with professional restraint. Then came the sandwich, thrown with force, exploding on his chest. Even through his ballistic vest, Larimore said, he felt the impact. The detail that stuck. You could smell the onions and mustard. That sensory image made the incident real for the jury. The mess wasn't just physical, it was personal and disrespectful. Larimore's calm testimony painted him as a professional just doing his job. The prosecution used his account to argue this was a real physical assault, not just a symbolic act. The sandwich, they said, crossed the line. After the sandwich toss, Dunn fled the scene. The prosecution argued his flight showed guilt. Innocent protesters don't run. Dunn was quickly apprehended, and body camera footage captured his arrest. On tape, Dunn said, "I was trying to draw them away from where they were. I succeeded." The prosecution called this a confession. Dunn meant to disrupt and interfere with the officers. It fit their charge of impeding a federal officer. To them it was proof of criminal intent. The defense countered. Dunn's words showed protest, not crime. He wanted to reclaim public space, not cause harm. His success was making a political point, not committing a crime. The same words became the heart of both arguments. The sandwich protest quickly went viral. The image of a man throwing a Subway sub at a federal agent was too bizarre to ignore. Sean Dunn became a symbol, either a folk hero or a criminal, depending on your view. Many saw him as a cathartic voice against government overreach, celebrating his act online. Hashtags like Doppern Sandwich Slinger and Subway Patriot trended, and memes flourished. Others saw disrespect for law and order, condemning his actions as childish and dangerous. The debate became a cultural Rorschach test: hero or brat, protest or crime. The story reflected the nation's polarization, with the same event interpreted in opposite ways. The sandwich protest was discussed everywhere, from social media to dinner tables. It became a symbol of modern dissent and of how divided the country had become. All over a sandwich. What can we learn from a man, a federal agent, and a flying sandwich? Protest is a protected right. Marching, shouting, expressing anger at government. But a crime is breaking the law, and assault means trying to harm someone. The prosecution argued Dunn's sandwich toss was assault, not protest. The defense said it was symbolic speech, not a real attack. Sometimes the line between protest and crime is blurry. The law tries to balance free speech with public safety. Dunn's story forces us to think about that balance, and what it means to be a responsible citizen. Whether you see him as a hero or a criminal, the sandwich protest is a lesson in modern dissent, and it definitely makes you think twice about what's in your lunch.